I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and we are today visiting, like we do this time every week, with Joe Newby.
Month too.
It's been a long month. Joe is a 10-year veteran of the Marine Corps. He ran for city council position in Riverside, California in 1991 and managed successful campaigns for the Idaho State Legislature. He's the co-author of Banned, How Facebook Enables Militant Islamic Jihad. He wrote for Examiner.com from 2010 until it closed in 2016. And his work has been published at Newsbusters, Spokane Faith and Values, and other sites, and he now runs the Conservative Firing Line at conservativefiringline.com. And so, Joe, we are just very, very happy to have you as a regular contributor to this program.
Well, it's my pleasure, Eric.
You know, revealing the truth means that we reveal the truth about everything. So
right.
I'm going to reveal the truth that I'm not in a good mood.
Okay.
I spent a weekend dealing with flooring people and a weekend dealing with a bunch of things that just kind of irritated me.
Yep.
And so I came in today and found that things weren't the way that I wanted them to be, and my second-hour guest was a no-show, so we had to do a replay. And we opened up the show with Michael Hart, who's the host of the Michael Hart Show, a syndicated talk show host, and we got to talk about politics. And it's just kept me fired up, and I know you stay fired up. That's what the Conservative Firing Line is all about. There are some stories out there that America is just being fed as if we were a bunch of idiots.
Pretty much anything on CNN these days, Eric, I'm telling you. Well, as you know, President Trump sent out a tweet that had in it a now very famous and quite viral meme showing the president body slamming some guy with a CNN logo, you know, superimposed over his face. Well, this was a video from, I think, what was it, back in 2007. It was a promo thing. It was an entertainment thing. It was all in good fun with WWE. You know, it was something that you watch and you laugh and you move on. It was just a lot of fun. Well, CNN, of course, got their knickers in an uproar over this, and basically what they did was they ended up starting a meme war with about half the country. And that's one thing you just don't do, because chances are you're going to lose. Now, just a little bit of background on this, Eric. CNN, back in January, the Washington Free Beacon put out an article that contained in it the results of a poll in which CNN was found to be, you know, the least trusted name in network news, and that's pretty much how the Free Beacon framed it. And with this whole brouhaha over this meme, they pretty much cemented their place, I think, as the least trusted and probably the least liked network in cable news. Because what they did, you know, it wasn't just a thing, Eric. You know, look, it was all in good fun. But what did CNN do? They sent out their crack investigative team, and I say that in air quotes, okay? Their crack investigative team to find out who it was that created this thing. And they found this anonymous Reddit user. Some people say it was 15. The guy who did the article over at CNN, Andrew Kaczynski, said, no, he was an adult. Doesn't matter whether he was an adult or a 15-year-old kid. CNN extracted an apology from this kid, kid, I say kid. At my age, pretty much everybody's a kid, okay?
Right.
And so they extracted an apology from this guy. He promised, you know, he supposedly took the thing down, promised never to do this again, and if that was all there was to it, probably wouldn't have been, you know, a big deal. But in CNN's article, in Andrew Kaczynski's article, there was this line that says, that of course CNN said that, they promised not to release this guy's identity out of concern for his safety. And then in the very next line, either Kaczynski or one of his editors noted that CNN reserves the right to release this person's identity if the situation changes. Translation, if you put up a meme that we don't like, we're going to out you. Now, Eric, in my world, that's called doxing. And for those who don't know what it means to dox someone, dox, by the way, comes from the term document, or docs, D-O-C-S, spelled in our world, D-O-X. And essentially what it is the unauthorized release of personal information, which can include name, address, telephone number, yada, 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 right on down the line, place of employment, and so forth. And there are some jurisdictions in which people who do that can actually find themselves in trouble with the law. So, what CNN basically did was they prompted the beginning of a viral hashtag, and this thing was viral for days and days and days. CNN blackmail was a hashtag. And of course, excuse me, of course CNN defended it and said, well, we have the right to dox us. Basically what they're saying is that if your meme doesn't meet our approval, or if we don't like it, we reserve the right to release your personal information. That was their basic message. Well, that's a wrong thing to tell half the country, especially the half that happen to support Donald Trump. Well, there were some people, even some to the left of center, some outlets to the left of center, Eric, that said, this is not quite right. And there were some who suggested that maybe CNN actually broke the law when they did this. Well, of course, they defended it. They're still defending it. They're still upset over it. And it's gone absolutely ridiculous, Eric. I mean, here you have the President of the United States doing his job, bringing jobs back to the country, and keeping the country safe from terrorism and from other threats like North Korea. And so what does CNN focus on? Well, hey, they want to focus on an animated GIF, for crying out loud, a picture. So now you have this meme war that has gone so far. I don't know if you saw it, Eric, but here the other day, Greg Gutfeld opened up an edition of Fox News The Five, right, by wearing a box on his head with the CNN logo on it. It was absolutely hilarious. But as a result of this, and as a result of the problems they've had with some of their articles recently, they had one where they actually had to let 3 people go. 3 people resigned over it. The article was retracted completely. It was another one of these Russia conspiracy theory things. That's all CNN covers anymore, Russia, Russia, Russia. And as a result, at one point, CNN actually started coming in at 13th place behind the Cartoon Network and 40-year-old reruns of Yogi Bear. Now, I remember Yogi Bear as a kid. I watched Yogi Bear as a kid. I watched it with, when my daughter was growing up, and it was a hoot. And so, but it says a lot that the least trusted name in network news, as I call them now, is now to the point to where they're actually coming in behind Full House reruns and 40-year-old cartoons. That's how far they have fallen.
I remember when Ted Turner had the vision for a cable news network.
Yes.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. He was looking to give America access to information that was not currently available. If you didn't get a copy of Newsweek or Time Magazine or Look or any of those publications, which was not contemporary content, you either depended upon the local newspaper,
right,
and the daily delivery, or
right,
talk radio at that time was in a different format. It was not as opinionated or edgy. It was more a news delivery mechanism.
Right.
And the concept was built on integrity. It was built on replicating the Walter Cronkites, replicating the trusted news source. And they created an environment of trusted news source. They were the first to the market. They were the first to the breaking story. And you looked to them and you became dependent upon them as the cable news network. As the market evolved and competition came into play, people began to shave at the edge of the corners, as they do for advertisers. But now what's happened is America is being fed across the board.
Right.
And even Fox.
Oh yeah.
The bias of any kind in a media that does not have a commitment to truth,
right,
whether you like the truth or not, any network which is willing to compromise or skew the truth,
right,
is a work of fiction.
Exactly. And now, you know, opinion journalism is one thing. If they came out, and I remember the time that you're talking about. Of course, you know, they had anchors at the time like Bernard Shaw. You know, it was a whole different world back then. You know, and opinion journalism is fine. I do a lot of that. You know, a lot of the blogosphere does that, or mixes in opinion with hard facts, and that's all covered by the First Amendment. You know, just like satire and everything else. The problem is, and this is where I think CNN comes up against it, Eric, is they present themselves as an objective news source, and they come out and tell us things like, you know, we are the arbiters of all truth, and what we say is, well, as we've seen, and not just in the 2016 election, Eric, but in elections past, in the 2012 election, and the 2008 election, and on, we have seen this slide into advocacy journalism. I read many years back, I read Marlon Maddox's book, Free Speech or Propaganda. It's an excellent book. And he showed people in that book how to spot the media bias. And yes, there were times where networks actually engaged in manufacturing or creating what we now call fake news in order to drive home a point. I think it was ABC, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was ABC who came up with this whole story about how gas tanks in certain vehicles were exploding on contact. And then we find out later on that wasn't the case, that they had hedged their bet by putting in flares to detonate at set times and you know, establishing a situation where an explosion would take place. Well, that cost them dearly. But back then, those kinds of things were somewhat rare. Now it seems like that sort of thing is happening on pretty much a daily basis, where you have, well, just here within the last week, Eric, here you have President Trump over in France meeting with the French president, and the day that he met with President Macron, he shook the man's hand and they went over and the band started playing the Star Spangled Banner. What did the CNN host do? The CNN anchor mistook it for the French national anthem. I mean, excuse me, you know, aren't these people supposed to know things, Eric? I mean, you would think that they would know the difference between the U.S. national anthem and the French national anthem. You know, La Marseillaise. You would think that they would know the difference between the two. But but she actually had to be corrected and come back on, and it was very embarrassing. And then you have another CNN host, I think it was Jeff Zeleny, who came out and said that that Bastille Day marked the 100th anniversary of the U.S. entry into World War I.
Right.
No, it wasn't. I mean, yeah, it was 100 years, but it was 100 years in April, and Bastille Day dates, way back to, I think, like 1789 sometime.
Right, exactly right. That was 228 years ago.
Right.
And what's interesting is that they then backpedal and said, well, what he was really referring to was a date that commemorated the 100th anniversary of America's involvement, not Bastille Day. And we've come into the season of excuse-making, backpedaling, releasing information prematurely. We're not vetting refugees, and
right.
We're putting a 2-year time frame on that. We're not even vetting the news that's going out over the air. And there are, I think there's a revolt that's about to take place.
I think so too.
That America is going to unplug. I'm thankful we're on this end of the on-demand, because in the on-demand world, we have no obligation to anything but the truth.
Absolutely.
If I mean, take a look. Bill de Blasio goes to France
yeah.
while one of his constituents has a funeral.
Right.
Bad optics.
It's worse than bad optics. It's horrible leadership. It's saying everything in New York is fine. I'm going to go over to France and make an idiot of myself because, well, Trump. I hate Trump. That's what it is. And so here he is over there with these G20 protesters acting like an idiot. Meanwhile, people in New York City, they've got subway. One of my contributors put this up. They actually have subway trains, he said, that were, and he put up some pictures, or a picture of it, subway cars that are being repaired with zip ties, for crying out loud. Where's de Blasio? He's over in Paris.
And we have Washington, which, this whole healthcare situation, how can anybody in their right mind say that what exists today is an acceptable health care plan?
And no one in their right mind. When you've got states that are opting out, you've got insurance companies that are saying, wait a minute, this isn't working. Obamacare is imploding. And
my understanding of the campaign and the agenda was, we're going to turn this into a free enterprise market. And insurance, just like automobile insurance, homeowners insurance, life insurance,
right,
you go out and you shop for a competitive policy.
Right.
There's places like Select Quote, or when I went for my Medicare policy to look at all my supplements.
Right.
I went through a broker because I couldn't make heads or tails of Mutual of Omaha and Humana and this one and that one. So I went to somebody that said, we'll compare all the plans for you.
Right.
We'll give you a side-by-side, check mark boxes, and then you make the decision. You click on this one you want for Plan C, this one you want for D, this one you want for F. We'll take care of setting up the billing arrangements for you. All right. And we get paid by them.
Right.
Great. Maybe if I went to Humana and instead of paying $13 a month, it would be $11 a month. I'm okay with that. They provided a good and valuable service.
Right.
Why do we have to have these accommodations for Medicaid, for encouraging people not to work, for entitlement programs. And look, I'm 65 years old.
Right.
I started paying into Social Security in 1965.
Right.
Okay, that's 52 years ago.
Right.
It was my money. It was to be invested for me and on my behalf. It was no different, in my understanding, than putting it into a broker's account or a piggy bank savings account, and that by the time I reached this age, that it would have been properly invested and that I would receive a return on that investment. And that based on the average earner, they should have enough to be able to retire.
And the thing is, you probably would have done a whole lot better if you had put that money in a brokerage house, quite honestly.
Well, that's exactly right. And then all of a sudden, someone came along and said, well, we could borrow from it, and it's an entitlement program. Yeah, entitlement, you're right. I'm entitled to it. Okay?
It's your money.
It was my money. And when I was an employer, I paid the employer's matching fund so that the employee was basically able to save 6% of his gross annual earnings. He wasn't disciplined enough, and I thought that was wisdom, because we see America is not a saving country. It was great wisdom to create a system where the minimum amount that a person put in and was credited with was 6% of whatever they earned. If you earned $1, 6 cents. If you earned $1,000, $60. Whatever the whole point was, the point was is we're going to create a way for America to grow old graciously so that we did not have to become a socialistic country that had to have a system for caring for the elderly.
Exactly.
Now the driving force is, what about the person that was the drug addict? Or what about the person that went out on through a loophole? And I'm not saying that every person that rides the cart at Walmart has an eating disorder.
Right.
But I don't see many skinny people driving the cart at Walmart going through the checkout line. I'm sorry.
Well, here's the thing. We've had this steady drumbeat since the time of Woodrow Wilson, and it started picking up when the Clintons were in office, talking about health care being a right, and it really picked up. It really ramped up during the Obama regime, with this whole thing about Obamacare and health care being a right. Now you have people who honestly believe that health care is every much a right, guaranteed by the Constitution, right up there with free speech and the right to keep and bear arms. And we have the leftists, the media, the Democrats to thank for that. It's like Margaret Thatcher said, socialism's wonderful until you run out of someone else's money. And that's what happened with Obamacare. It was great until we started running out of everyone else's money. Now, I think I heard just the other day that even Social Security, they're looking that it may not be viable and available in something like 12 to 15 years.
That's grand theft. That is embezzlement. That is Bernie Madoff to the nth degree. I put the money in, good faith and value. I was given no choice. It was mandated. And I faithfully did it until I was in full-time ministry, where I had the opportunity to be exempt. And the exemption for clergy is we don't believe that tax deductible contributions should be used to provide for support for the clergy. It should be used for the support of the ministry.
Right, and I'm in pretty much the same boat you are, Eric. I mean, I'm 60 years old. I've been paying into this system for what now? 42 years. The first 10 of those was in the service, and the rest was in civilian life. But I've been paying into it just like you and everybody else our age. And I'm thinking, I'm looking, and yeah, I get my statements from Social Security every year, telling me the little pittance I'm going to get every month if I wait until I'm 70 years old, assuming I live that long, you know. But I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, then I hear a certain amount of that is going to be taxed, and they're going to take out from Medicaid, and they're going to do this and they're going to do that, and I'm like, what? And yeah, I don't know if I'm ever really going to see any of that money.
Wow.
And like you, I've paid into it my entire working adult life.
Well, it's an issue that's got to be addressed and resolved. We're talking with Joe Newby during the Joe Newby Hour, right here on Revealing the Truth. As we do this time every month, we are on the, what is this, the third, how do we do this, Joe? With the third Monday of every month?
Well, normally we were doing it the first Monday of every month, and then we switched around after you got back from the Middle East.
Oh, yeah, so we stuck you in for an extra. This is an extra and extra. We'll be back to, because you're going to be back on in 2 weeks on the 7th on your regular time, which is the first Monday of every month at 12 o'clock p.m. Central Time. So we get an extra hour with Joe this week. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, I want to talk about what's happening with this Penn and Teller convention called Congress, the Penn and Teller convention, the David Copperfield show called Washington, this illusion that they are gathered about government and seeking truth, when it is a witch hunt worse than McCarthyism, and has none of the makings of a Watergate, not even the first one. There was a whole lot more out of Watergate in 6 months of investigation of Watergate than they are today, and they are ramping up, and it is making me crazy. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Shalom. I'm the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, Executive Director of Igniting a Nation and host of the daily TV program Revealing the Truth, seen live every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time at www.ianbn.com, and then replayed throughout the day and night via our website. All of our segments can be seen on the Igniting a Nation YouTube channel. Since our launch in January of this year, we've expanded our global reach to over 54 countries with a social media following of over 125,000. Our commitment is to bring you the most in-depth interviews with authors, subject matter experts, and thought leaders from around the world. We have interviewed guests from Israel, Brazil, England, India, and all across North America. All of our authors are featured on the Books and Media page on our website, www.ianbn.com. There you can find a direct link to the book you want to order, and we receive a small commission directly from Amazon. There is no cost to you for this service. In addition to our daily teachings and interviews, we make available to you the archive of all of the interviews on our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram channels. Our live program is available from our homepage, and there is never a charge to you for any of this access. We made the decision long ago that we would remain a commercial-free resource that would not be influenced by any pressure from any outside company. There are only two ways that we are able to continue to operate this ministry and provide you with the only live 4-hour daily Christian television talk show program. The first is through your support and tax-deductible contributions to Igniting a Nation. These can be made directly through the donate button on the website or sent through the mail to Igniting a Nation, 2700 Corporate Drive, Suite 120, Birmingham, Alabama, 35242. The other way we support the program is by offering you a unique opportunity to have access to over 10 years worth of teachings on a subscription basis. The Teaching Archives contains all of my prior sermons, Torah studies, Prophecy in the News videos, and much more for the low subscription price of $5 per month. This subscription grants you unlimited access to over 800 hours of content not available elsewhere and is updated weekly with the most current prophecy classes. In addition to 20 hours of original TV programming each weekday, we invite you to join us live every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday evenings for our Prophecy in the News classes. The times and locations are listed on our events page on the website www.ianbn.com. Every day, you and I are faced with the challenge of where we will go to hear the truth. We are committed to bring you the only program of its kind that covers the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. We cannot do this without your support. Since we launched on January 5th, 2017, we have aired over 300 individual teachings, interviews, and commentaries not available anywhere else. We are now working side by side with almost every major Christian publishing house to bring you the most in-depth feature interviews possible. Our one-hour features address every subject that affects the believer's life. We are hearing of salvations from the Middle East, Africa, and all across the United States. Lives are being changed every day, and we have only just begun. Our mission is to become your trusted resource and grant you access to the people, tools, and information you need to grow in your relationship with the Lord. You can help us by liking us on social media and through your financial support. We know you have many choices in who you support, but we are prayerfully asking you to consider helping us keep revealing the truth, true to our calling, to cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth like no other program available. Donate today and help us bring the message to the four corners of the earth. Visit www.ianbn.com and donate, buy a book, or subscribe to our teaching archives. Without you, we do not exist. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and we are enjoying an extra edition of the Joe Newby Hour. Joe writes every day on conservativefiringline.com and is a contributor in many other locations. We have been talking about how frustrated we are with this whole Russian distraction as to was there collusion, was there not collusion, was there meetings. It is the role of government and people in government to meet in the intelligence community with other members of the intelligence community and to exchange information which give a little, get a little. That's how the system's worked since the days of spies have worked.
Here's the thing, and what I find most interesting, Eric, is we have gone from Russia has hacked our election and they've hacked our voting machines. We now know that's a pile of garbage, to put it nicely. To, well, Trump colluded with Russia. Well, that's been blown out of the water. Nobody has any evidence of anything. To, well, Donald Trump Jr. met with a Russian, who, by the way, we now know had ties to Fusion GPS, which was the outfit that put out the fake Trump-Russia dossier, claiming that, well, there were shenanigans with prostitutes in a hotel room and so on. I won't get into the specifics of that with your audience. But that has turned out to be totally fake, totally blown out of the water. Now the talking point is, well, Donald Trump Jr. was willing to collude with the Russians. Well, Eric, look, there is absolutely nothing illegal about what Donald Trump Jr. did. I have read up with what legal experts have said about this, people who know election law, and the left. Here you had Tim Kaine, Hillary Clinton's vice presidential running mate, who accused Donald Trump Jr. of treason. Well, again, no, there's not any treason involved primarily because we are not at war with Russia. Contrary to what Keith Olbermann and the unhinged left would have us believe, no one has declared war on Russia. This is, for Tim Kaine to come out and accuse, and others, there were others that did it as well, to come out and accuse Donald Trump Jr. of treason makes me wonder, well, does Tim Kaine and the Democrats, do they want Donald Trump's son killed, executed? They must, because that's one of the punishments prescribed in the Constitution for treason, is execution, death penalty. So this thing is just blown way out of proportion. Meanwhile, you have Hillary Clinton's team, we know, actually colluded with, or they had operatives, excuse me, who met with an operative of the Ukrainian government to dig up dirt on Donald Trump. And when Jay Sekulow, one of Trump's attorneys, confronted CNN's, I think it was Chris Cuomo, about this, Cuomo came out and said, well, it's okay, it's a totally different thing because we have a totally different relationship with Ukraine. The threat level is different. Translation, Hillary can do whatever she wants with anyone she wants, and it doesn't matter. But Donald Trump, even the thought that he might have spoken with or was in the, within 100 yards of a Russian, that's treason. Well, I'm sorry, Eric. I told you during the break, I worked for a company one time, and I probably should be careful about saying this because it's going to be on YouTube, and who knows, maybe Media Matters or someone over in the Democrat Party will hear this, but keep this to yourself, Eric. You got to promise me.
I will.
Keep this to yourself. I worked within 10 feet of a Russian immigrant for over a year. Yeah. And you know what? We actually spoke to each other. We even had lunch a time or two in the lunchroom. We even had coffee a time or two, over the year or so that I was with this company. There were other Russians who worked at this company as well. And I was well within 100 yards of them on pretty much any given day. And I'll fill you in on something else. Once upon a time, my in-laws actually lived next door to a Russian immigrant. And you know what? And I've spoken with him. He's a nice fellow, very, very nice, very pleasant fellow. And it turned out he was my counterpart in the Soviet rocket army. And the things he told me is like, oh, you guys had nothing to worry about from us. So, but that's how insane that it's gotten, Eric. That is absolutely how nuts that this whole Russia conspiracy theory, and that's what I call it now, a conspiracy theory, has gotten. And so it's gotten to the point, Judge Janine did just a wonderful opening monologue here the other day, Eric, where she came out and she said, you know what? If the devil offered me opposition research, I'd be on the first trolley to hell to meet with him. And she said, any politician who says anything different is full of BS. And I'm here to tell you, Eric, as someone who once ran for office and someone who helped other people run for office, if someone reached out to me and said they had some opposition research on my candidate,
right,
or opposition research on my candidate's opponent, yeah, I'd meet with them. I'd say, well, sure, let's take a look and see what you have. It might be, it might be useful. It might not. Well, in the case of this in the case of Donald Trump Jr.'s meeting, it turns out the whole thing was a farce. The whole thing was a setup. You know, the claim was that she had dirt on Hillary Clinton. Well, that's kind of easy to do. I mean, Hillary's got a 40-year career of, lying and scheming her way to the top. So, yeah, naturally. I mean, if I was Donald Trump Jr., I'd probably say, sure, let's meet.
But we as a country had James Comey stand before Congress and cite violations of federal law, verified claims of the passing of confidential information in an unsecured manner, and the United States government did not act upon it. If they would not act upon concrete, validated evidence presented by the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, what in God's name are they going to do with anything, if there even is anything, with this information about Donald Trump?
Well, Eric, the whole thing reeks of desperation. It reeks of hypocrisy. Let's face it, and I think we've talked about this before. I know I've written about it, but I am convinced that the left, the organized left, which I include the media, or what I call the Democrat media complex, is in an active effort to enact a coup d'etat against this president. They will not stop until he is driven out of office. And look, what people forget, you and I were around when this happened. A lot of these people today who were screaming Russia, Russia, Russia weren't, or they don't remember.
Right.
But there was a time when the Democrats loved Russia. They loved Russia so much that Ted Kennedy actually reached out to the KGB and worked with the KGB to defeat Ronald Reagan. Now, where was the outrage about that? Where's Adam Schiff about that? I don't hear it. I don't hear CNN out there screaming Russia, 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 Russia every single day. Do you?
And the population of America does not care.
No, they don't. The population is sick and tired of hearing Russia all the time. Eric, I'm telling you, my wife was telling me the other day, she's sick of it. She's got friends who've told her, yeah, they're sick of it. I see the polls. There are polls, I think Rasmussen did a poll, showing where people are convinced, a majority of Heartland voters are not only sick and tired of hearing CNN and Russia all the time, but they are convinced that the media is actively pushing this in an effort to oust Donald Trump. So what does CNN do? Hey, they double down. I'm telling you, every day when I look at my Twitter feed, it's, whatever somebody from CNN, Trump, Russia, Trump, Russia, Trump, Russia, right. Trump stinks, Trump doesn't wear mismatched, or Trump wears mismatched socks, or something equally silly. And it's the same thing from a lot of these left-wing sites, like the Daily Beast, Vox, you name it. People have had it, Eric. They've actually had it. And I think come 2018, if Donald Trump can keep it all together between now and then, I think the Democrats are going to find themselves paying a very serious price at the polls in 2018.
Well, we've already seen it twice in the last two special House elections, where they threw $50 million at a in the community my daughter lives in, and
right.
They didn't buy their vote. They didn't buy their way into it. America's fickle. Even the fact that there is no local Republican Party, North Jefferson Women's, Birmingham Republican Party, nobody's saying, guys, senators, shut it down. Get back to business. Here were the points in which Donald Trump was elected, and you kept your position in the House or the Senate.
Right.
That is, repeal and replace Obamacare.
Right.
Enact an immigration program which protects the borders of the United States up to and including a wall.
Right.
Tax cuts.
Absolutely.
Job development.
Absolutely.
Those are the 5 top issues on the table, and Russia is not a part of any of those.
No.
Now,
No. Not one.
oddly enough, in the 6 months he's been in office, we've seen job increases every month.
Yep.
We've seen the stock market skyrocket.
Absolutely.
We've seen energy prices go down.
Yep.
We're now like at $1.79 a gallon for gasoline here in the local market, where a couple years ago it was $3.10.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're seeing so many benefits of even the reduction in illegal immigration over the border with Mexico because of the threat.
Right.
There's a presence there. It doesn't have to be a wall. There's the voice that's saying you're not welcome here. We're shutting this down.
Right.
The fact that we are allowing Washington to go down this path, the Democrats are funding a Las Vegas magic show of nothing but illusion and collusion, and they don't have enough to go on at this point to even justify a special investigation.
No, they don't.
But
They
they're
absolutely don't.
going to put together a special investigator whose job it's going to be is to expand this until he tries to find something. Well, in the meantime, Hillary Clinton broke the law.
Yeah.
And as long as they're focusing on Donald Trump, they're leaving Hillary Clinton alone.
Absolutely. Well, and it's not just that, but people are slowly waking up to the realization that Barack Obama knew a lot of this was going on and did absolutely nothing. And you're absolutely right. People are sick and tired of this. Here we've got Congress right now, after telling us for 7 years they're going to repeal Obamacare, they're going to get rid of it, and now they can't even get enough Republican votes in the Senate. They're having to wait until John McCain is out of the hospital to have enough potential votes to pass the Republican health care bill through. Now, there are 2 Republicans who are opposed to it. One of them, of course, is Susan Collins, who pretty much, in my view, is kind of like Joe Scarborough. She's more of a Democrat than a Republican anyway. And then you've got Rand Paul. Now, I understand where Rand Paul is coming from. What he's saying is actually making sense, and it's something that the rest of the Republican Party needs to listen to, because a lot of Obamacare, the subsidies, the taxes, and so forth, a lot of the onerous parts of Obamacare are still alive in this GOP version. It's like Obamacare light. But that's not what we elected these people to do, Eric. We elected them to go in there and get rid of this monster, yank it out by the roots, get rid of it. But they refused to do it for some reason. And the only reason I can think of is they don't want to face the same kind of threats that got Representative Steve Scalise shot. And that's another huge issue too, Eric, because Republicans, there has been, I saw a couple articles. The Hill reported, it was The Hill, reported that just up until now, lawmakers have endured more threats so far, just this first 6 months of this year, 7 months, than they did all of 2016. And in the period between, I think it was May 1st to about June 22nd, there were 30 threats against lawmakers, mostly all Republican. Yeah, there were 1 or 2 Democrats, but it was mostly all Republican. And then, of course, you had Steve Scalise, who was shot by this, by this crazed Bernie Sanders supporter who hated Republicans. And he bragged about watching Rachel Maddow and all these other shows. Now I'm not, I don't want to say that Rachel Maddow formed what he thought, but it just seems awful strange to me that this is the kind of thing this guy got into, and look at what he ended up doing.
Well, you're exactly right. The country is as divided as it's been since the to the mid 1800s.
Right.
And the conservative voice that got Donald Trump elected sounds like they thought they did their job, they accomplished their goal, and now they've forgotten all about the fact that they were active in that. They had to show up and vote. They need to be active in the local voice, local community, and holding their senators and their congressmen accountable for their stand on these policies. I want, and even though I'm covered under Medicare now, I want my daughter to have the same opportunity to buy auto insurance, home insurance, health insurance, life insurance, the same way. Go to the best price available and just take it out of the government's hands and say, look, corporate America, you want to be in the insurance business, go compete with yourself. You want to be in the airline business, go compete with yourself. You want to be in the automobile business, go compete with yourself. What are we doing? Where did health care get this exemption?
Well, and like I said before, Eric, this is something that's been going on, slowly building up since the days of Woodrow Wilson.
Right.
And as I'm sure you know and your audience knows, it was FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who came up with the idea that health care is a right. Well, no, it's not. And this is something that has been slowly fed to the public over the years. And it's gotten to the point now, I saw a video put out by Campus Reform. This is how bad it is, Eric. You have students on college campi who say, yes, they love socialism and they really like the idea of socialism and getting free stuff from the government because, government's got all this money, right? But they have no idea what socialism even is. They have no idea whatsoever. And that's because you have leftist college professors teaching Marxism, and they're not being educated, Eric, they're being indoctrinated. And this indoctrination has been slowly building up, over the last century, that this is where we are. I mean, this stuff didn't just happen overnight.
Well, you're exactly right.
It didn't happen in a vacuum. So what concerns me, I'm with you. I want my children, I've got grandchildren, I want my grandchildren to be able to grow up with the same opportunities that you and I had growing up as youngsters. I want them to be able to say, I want to do this or that or the other. I want them, if they decide they want to have a business, go out and start a business, for crying out loud. If they want to go to college and get a degree, go for it. That should be their dream. But it's not a right that government has to subsidize. That's the problem. People now think, well, the government owes me. It's all free. No, it's not. Someone has to pay for that.
Well, you and I have to be a sound voice in a crazy world, and that's exactly what we're doing. You can follow Joe Newby at conservativefiringline.com, and we're going to see you right back here in 2 weeks on the first Monday of August at 12 p.m. Central Time. We've come to the end of our broadcast time together, and as always, Joe, thank you for buying into my mania, because I'm fired up today, and these are the topics that just have been just getting under my skin, and I know they get under yours because you write about them every single day. So we thank you. Don't forget, get your copy of the book Banned. If you want to know the inside story, the backstory about what Facebook has really been doing and continues to do in enabling as a connection point, as an old bulletin board style connection point to connect people to Islamic Jihad. you'd be shocked and amazed at this expose. The book is called Banned, co-authored by Joe Newby, and you can check it out, and you can check out some of the book by going to conservativefiringline.com. And that brings us to the end of our live broadcast day. This program will be rebroadcast 4 more times today, so you can not miss out on any of the interviews that we have shared with you today. You can also visit us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And so until we see you right back here on Revealing the Truth, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Central Time, we bid you shalom.